Hello and welcome to Bigfoot, Beyond the Footprints. Before we get into the video, comment below where you're watching this from and like this video. Thank you. Now you can relax and enjoy the following stories. In the late 1800s, the Pacific Northwest was a rugged frontier, home to towering forests and treacherous mountains. Among the many figures who roamed this untamed land was Silas Blackjack Dalton, a notorious outlaw known for his string of bank robberies and train heists. With a substantial bounty on his head, Dalton had become a wanted man, relentlessly pursued by law enforcement and bounty hunters alike. After a botched robbery in Portland, Dalton found himself cornered. With limited options, he fled into the dense forests of the Cascade Range, seeking refuge in the uncharted wilderness. The towering trees and labyrinthine terrain provided ample cover, but also concealed unknown dangers. As Dalton ventured deeper into the forest, he became aware of an unsettling presence. The usual sounds of wildlife were absent, replaced by an eerie silence. Occasionally, he heard distant, heavy footsteps and glimpsed large shadows moving between the trees. Dismissing these as figments of his imagination, he pressed on, driven by desperation. After days of wandering, Dalton stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin. Seeking shelter, he decided to make it his temporary hideout. Inside, he found remnants of previous inhabitants, rusted tools, tattered clothing, and faded photographs. It was evident that the cabin had been abandoned for years. During his stay, Dalton couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At night, he heard guttural growls and the snapping of branches nearby. One morning, he discovered massive footprints surrounding the cabin, each measuring over 18 inches in length. The realization that he was not alone filled him with unease. One evening, as Dalton sat by the dwindling fire, the cabin door creaked open. Standing in the doorway was a colossal figure, covered in matted hair, with deep-set eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. The creature, standing over 8 feet tall, exuded an aura of both power and ancient wisdom. Instead of attacking, the creature simply observed Dalton. Moments passed in tense silence before it turned and disappeared into the forest. Over the following days, the creature reappeared multiple times, each encounter less intimidating than the last. Dalton began to perceive the being not as a threat, but as a guardian of the forest, perhaps curious about the intruder in its domain. Dalton's respite was short-lived. A posse had tracked him into the wilderness and was closing in. As they approached the cabin, a dense fog enveloped the area, and the men reported hearing unearthly howls echoing through the trees. Panicked, they fired blindly into the mist. When the fog lifted, Dalton was gone, and the posse found themselves surrounded by the same massive footprints Dalton had seen. Silas Blackjack Dalton was never seen again. Some say he perished in the wilderness, while others believe he was taken by the mysterious creature that roamed the forest. The legend of the outlaw and the enigmatic guardian became a tale whispered among locals, a reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden within the depths of the untamed wilderness. In the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, a notorious criminal syndicate led by Victor the Wolf Karpov had established a clandestine hideout. The remote location served as the perfect base for their illicit activities, including smuggling, arms dealing, and human trafficking. The thick canopy and treacherous terrain ensured that the hideout remained concealed from authorities and unsuspecting hikers. Among the captives held by Karpov's gang was Emily Thompson, a young investigative journalist who had ventured too close to uncovering their operations. Determined to silence her, the gang had abducted Emily and brought her to their forest lair. Confined to a small, dimly lit cabin, she plotted her escape, waiting for the opportune moment. Unbeknownst to the criminals, the forest was home to a legendary creature, Bigfoot. For years, locals had whispered tales of a massive, bipedal ape-like being that roamed the woods, eluding capture and observation. While many dismissed these stories as mere folklore, those who ventured deep into the forest spoke of eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena. As the gang settled into their hideout, they began experiencing unsettling events. Supplies would go missing, only to be found later in odd locations. At night, they heard distant, haunting howls, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the trees. Initially, Karpov dismissed these incidents as pranks or the antics of wild animals. However, the frequency and intensity of the occurrences grew, instilling a sense of unease among the men. One evening, as Emily peered through a crack in her cabin wall, she spotted a colossal figure lurking at the edge of the clearing. Standing over 8 feet tall, covered in matted fur, the creature observed the camp with keen, intelligent eyes. Realizing that the legends were true, Emily saw a potential ally in her bid for freedom. Emily began leaving small offerings of food outside her cabin, hoping to gain the creature's trust. Over time, the offerings would disappear, and she noticed the creature observing her more frequently. One night, she decided to make her move. Using a piece of charcoal, she drew a simple map on a scrap of cloth, indicating her captivity and the presence of the gang. She left the map with her latest offering, praying that the creature would understand. As tensions rose within the gang due to the unexplained disturbances, Karpov decided to move their operation deeper into the forest. As they prepared to relocate, the creature made its presence known. With a deafening roar, Bigfoot emerged from the shadows, launching a surprise attack on the unsuspecting criminals. Using its immense strength and agility, it dismantled their equipment and incapacitated several gang members. Amidst the chaos, Emily seized the opportunity to escape. She sprinted through the forest, guided by the moonlight filtering through the canopy. Behind her, she heard the continued commotion as Bigfoot confronted the remaining criminals. After hours of running, she stumbled upon a logging road where she was eventually rescued by a passing ranger. A subsequent investigation led authorities to the destroyed hideout. They found evidence of a violent struggle, with several gang members injured and others missing. While the official report attributed the events to a rival gang attack, Emily knew the truth. She chose to keep her encounter with Bigfoot a secret, believing that the creature deserved to remain a mystery, free from human interference. Emily's harrowing experience became a turning point in her life. She left investigative journalism and became an advocate for the preservation of wilderness areas, driven by a profound respect for the enigmatic guardian of the forest. The tale of The Secret Hideout, Criminals, Captives, and Bigfoot remains a testament to the mysteries that lie hidden within the depths of the natural world. In the dense woodlands of Northern California, near the small town of Laytonville, a gruesome discovery was made in the mid-1990s. 3 employees of a local cannabis farm were found brutally murdered at their remote campsite. The crime scene was a chaotic mess, with personal belongings scattered and signs of a violent struggle evident. The victims had suffered severe blunt force trauma, and the lack of a clear motive or suspect left the local authorities baffled. Sheriff's deputies, along with forensic experts, combed the area for clues. They documented the disarray, overturned camping equipment, torn tents, and deep impressions in the soil. The sheer force required to inflict such damage suggested a perpetrator of immense strength. However, no murder weapon was found, and there were no signs of robbery or personal disputes among the victims. As investigators expanded their search radius, they stumbled upon a series of large, human-like footprints leading away from the campsite. Each print measured approximately 18 inches in length, far exceeding the size of an average human foot. The depth of the impressions indicated that whatever made them was exceptionally heavy. Additionally, tufts of coarse, dark hair were found snagged on nearby branches, adding to the mystery. Local residents, familiar with the legends of the area, began to speculate about the involvement of Bigfoot, the elusive creature rumored to inhabit the forests of the Pacific Northwest. Reports of sightings and unexplained phenomena had been part of the region's folklore for decades. Some townspeople recalled hearing eerie howls and encountering foul odors during their time in the woods, attributing these experiences to the mythical beast. Curious about the unusual evidence, the authorities consulted with Dr. Miriam Collins, a renowned primatologist with an interest in cryptozoology. Upon examining the hair samples and footprint casts, Dr. Collins noted that while the hair did not match any known local wildlife, it was inconclusive without further analysis. The footprints, however, displayed dermal ridges and characteristics consistent with a primate, yet their size and depth were unprecedented. Despite the intriguing evidence, many investigators remained skeptical of the Bigfoot theory. They considered alternative explanations, such as the possibility of a large, unclassified animal or even a human perpetrator using makeshift tools to mimic the creature's features. The lack of concrete evidence made it difficult to draw definitive conclusions. As months passed without new leads, the investigation gradually lost momentum. The murders remained unsolved, and the case was eventually classified as cold. The families of the victims were left without answers, and the community continued to live under the shadow of the unsolved crime. The tragic events near Laytonville became a part of local lore, further entwining the legend of Bigfoot with real-life mysteries. Some residents reported subsequent sightings of large bipedal creatures in the area, while others dismissed these accounts as fabrications or misidentifications. The story served as a cautionary tale about the dangers lurking in the depths of the forest and the thin line between myth and reality. The Silent Watcher case remains one of the most enigmatic chapters in the annals of forest crime. Whether the true culprit was a legendary creature, an unknown animal, or a human with nefarious intent, the mystery endures. It stands as a testament to the unexplored mysteries of our world and the enduring allure of the unknown. In the late summer of 1995, Jack "the Fox" Turner, a notorious bank robber, orchestrated a daring escape from a high-security prison in Oregon. Known for his cunning and resourcefulness, Jack had evaded capture multiple times, earning him his elusive moniker. This time, he planned to disappear into the vast and dense expanse of the Pacific Northwest's pine forests, where he believed no law enforcement could follow. With a stolen backpack containing minimal supplies, a flashlight, a map, a canteen, and a few cans of food, Jack ventured deep into the forest. His plan was to trek through the wilderness, avoiding all human contact until he reached the Canadian border. The towering pines and thick underbrush provided ample cover, but also posed significant challenges for an untrained survivalist. After several days of arduous travel, Jack began noticing peculiar signs around his makeshift campsites. Large, human-like footprints, far larger than his own, appeared near the stream where he collected water. At night, he heard distant, heavy footsteps and low grunts, unlike any animal he was familiar with. Dismissing these as the sounds of bears or elk, he pressed on, attributing his unease to the stress of being a fugitive. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack settled into a small clearing to rest. The forest was eerily silent, with only the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Suddenly, a strong, pungent odor, reminiscent of wet dog and decaying vegetation, filled the air. Before he could react, a massive figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the clearing. Standing over 8 feet tall, covered in matted, dark hair, the creature had broad shoulders and a pronounced brow ridge. Its deep-set eyes seemed to glint with intelligence as they locked onto Jack's. Paralyzed with fear, Jack could only stare as the being studied him for what felt like an eternity, but was merely seconds. Without a sound, the creature turned and disappeared back into the forest, leaving Jack trembling and questioning his sanity. Shaken but determined, Jack continued his journey, now acutely aware that he was not alone in these woods. The sightings became more frequent, glimpses of the creature watching from a distance, the sound of branches snapping under its weight, and that unmistakable odor signaling its proximity. It became clear to Jack that the being was not merely observing, it was guiding him, herding him away from certain areas and steering him toward others. As days turned into weeks, Jack's supplies dwindled, and exhaustion took its toll. One night, as he lay beneath the canopy of stars, the creature approached once more, this time without pretense. Standing at the edge of his campfire's light, it extended a massive, open hand, revealing a handful of berries and a freshly caught fish. Too weak to refuse, Jack accepted the offering, and in that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Over the following days, the creature, whom Jack now referred to as Guardian, led him to fresh water sources, edible plants, and safe paths through treacherous terrain. Jack realized that this being was not the mindless monster of legend, but a sentient guardian of the forest, perhaps recognizing Jack as a fellow outcast. Eventually, they reached the edge of the forest, where the trees thinned and the distant lights of civilization flickered. Guardian stopped, gazing intently at Jack, as if conveying that their journey together had come to an end. With a nod of gratitude, Jack stepped out of the woods, turning back once to see the massive silhouette fade into the shadows. Jack the Fox. Turner was eventually recaptured near the Canadian border, emaciated and delirious. He recounted his tale of survival and the enigmatic creature that aided him, but authorities dismissed it as the ravings of a desperate man. However, Jack knew the truth, that deep within the pines, a guardian watched over the forest, and for a brief moment had extended a hand of compassion to a fugitive in need. This story serves as a testament to the mysteries that lie within the uncharted territories of our world, and the unexpected bonds that can form between beings, both human and legendary. In the summer of 1987, 24-year-old Emily Carter, an avid hiker and amateur photographer, set out to explore the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. Known for her adventurous spirit, Emily often ventured into remote areas alone, capturing the beauty of untouched nature through her lens. On this particular trip, she planned to document the secluded trails of the Olympic National Forest in Washington state. Emily's last known contact was a brief phone call to her parents, informing them of her intended route and assuring them she'd return in 3 days. When she failed to return and missed subsequent check-ins, her family reported her missing, prompting an extensive search and rescue operation. Search teams, comprising local authorities, volunteers, and experienced trackers, scoured the forest for weeks. They discovered Emily's abandoned campsite near a tranquil creek. Her tent was intact, personal belongings undisturbed, and her camera missing. Despite the thorough search, no further evidence of Emily's whereabouts emerged, and the case eventually went cold, leaving her family in a state of perpetual grief and uncertainty. Years later, in the early 2000s, a group of hikers exploring a remote section of the Olympic National Forest stumbled upon a weathered backpack wedged between rocks in a shallow ravine. Inside, they found a water-damaged journal and a rusted pocket knife. The journal, though partially illegible, bore the name Emily Carter on the inside cover. The hikers turned the items over to local authorities, reigniting interest in the decades-old cold case. Forensic experts carefully restored portions of the journal, revealing Emily's final entries. Initially, her notes detailed the serene beauty of the forest, encounters with wildlife, and the joy of solitude. However, as the entries progressed, a shift in tone became evident. Emily wrote of an unsettling feeling of being watched. She described hearing heavy footsteps trailing her at a distance, the crack of branches under significant weight, and low, guttural noises echoing in the night. In one entry, she mentioned finding large, human-like footprints near her campsite, far larger than any human could make. The final, most chilling entry read, "It's back. The footsteps are closer tonight. I can feel its eyes on me. This is not a bear or any animal I've ever encountered. I fear what lies ahead." Emily's descriptions aligned with numerous reports of Bigfoot sightings in the Pacific Northwest, tales of a large bipedal creature lurking in the forests. While many dismissed these accounts as folklore or misidentifications, the details in Emily's journal reignited debates among enthusiasts and skeptics alike. Some theorized that Emily had an encounter with the elusive creature, leading to her disappearance. Others suggested that her fear and the stress of isolation might have caused disorientation, resulting in an accidental fall or misadventure. Despite renewed interest, no conclusive evidence was found to determine her fate. Emily Carter's case remains unsolved, a haunting enigma in the annals of missing persons. The Olympic National Forest continues to be a hotspot for Bigfoot enthusiasts, drawn by the possibility of encountering the unknown. Emily's story serves as a somber reminder of the mysteries that the wilderness holds and the fine line between adventure and peril. The tale of Emily Carter intertwines the allure of the unexplored with the enduring legend of Bigfoot. Whether her disappearance was the result of an encounter with the mythical creature or a tragic accident remains a subject of speculation. Her story endures as a testament to the enigmatic beauty and inherent dangers of the wild, where the boundaries between myth and reality blur. Deep within the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest lies an area untouched by modern civilization. Towering evergreens, thick underbrush, and a perpetual mist create an atmosphere of isolation and mystery. This remote wilderness has long been rumored to harbor secrets, from whispered tales of clandestine activities to sightings of elusive creatures. In the early 1990s, a notorious criminal syndicate sought refuge from law enforcement by establishing a hidden base within this uncharted territory. They constructed a secluded cabin, accessible only through a maze of overgrown trails known to few. This cabin became the epicenter of their illicit operations, including smuggling and counterfeiting. As the criminals settled into their new hideout, they began noticing odd occurrences. Food supplies would vanish overnight, tools were displaced, and eerie, distant howls echoed through the night. Initially, they dismissed these events as the work of local wildlife or their own paranoia. One fog-laden evening, while conducting a clandestine meeting, the group heard heavy footsteps approaching the cabin. The door creaked open, and a massive, shadowy figure stood silhouetted against the moonlight. Standing over 8 feet tall, covered in matted hair, and possessing piercing eyes that seemed to reflect intelligence, the creature observed them silently. Panic ensued. Weapons were drawn, but before anyone could react, the being retreated into the forest with remarkable speed. Following the encounter, the criminals were on edge. They fortified the cabin and set traps around the perimeter, fearing both law enforcement and the mysterious creature. Despite their precautions, the nocturnal disturbances escalated. Guttural growls, tree knocks, and glimpses of the towering figure became frequent. The men, hardened by their criminal endeavors, found themselves unnerved by an adversary they couldn't comprehend. One night, determined to confront the intruder, the group devised a plan. They lured the creature by leaving out food and waited in ambush. As anticipated, the being approached cautiously. Just as they prepared to capture or kill it, the creature let out a deafening roar, paralyzing them with fear. In that moment, they realized they were not the apex predators in this wilderness. The creature, displaying what seemed like a gesture of disdain, turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving the men shaken. The encounter had a profound effect on the criminals. The realization that an unknown entity dominated the forest instilled a deep sense of vulnerability. Fearing further confrontations and the possibility of their hideout being discovered by authorities, they abandoned the cabin, leaving behind their operations. The forest reclaimed the structure, erasing traces of their presence. Years later, hikers stumbled upon the remnants of the hidden cabin, now overgrown and decaying. Local legends spoke of a group of men who ventured into the forest for nefarious purposes, only to be driven out by a guardian of the woods, a creature known as Bigfoot. The story serves as a testament to the mysteries that lie within the uncharted territories of our world and the entities that may call them home. In the early 1980s, the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, particularly the Cascade Mountains in Washington state, served as clandestine corridors for smugglers transporting illicit goods across the US-Canada border. These remote trails, shrouded in mist and shadowed by towering evergreens, provided the perfect cover for those wishing to evade law enforcement. Jake "Red" Thompson was a seasoned smuggler, known for his deep knowledge of these forested paths. With fiery red hair and a reputation for cunning, he had successfully navigated contraband through the Cascades for years, always staying one step ahead of the authorities. His success was attributed to his meticulous planning and an uncanny ability to sense danger. On a crisp autumn night in 1983, Jake embarked on what he anticipated to be a routine run. The moon cast a silvery glow, illuminating the narrow trail ahead. As he ventured deeper into the forest, he began noticing peculiar signs. Large, human-like footprints embedded in the soft earth, broken branches at unusual heights, and an eerie silence that enveloped the woods. The usual nocturnal sounds were absent, replaced by an oppressive stillness. As midnight approached, Jake's unease grew. He felt an intangible presence, as if unseen eyes were tracking his every move. Suddenly, a distant guttural howl pierced the silence, echoing through the trees. Jake's heart raced. He quickened his pace, but the sense of being followed intensified. Occasionally, he caught glimpses of a massive, shadowy figure moving parallel to his path, always staying just out of clear sight. Near a narrow ravine, Jake's path was blocked by a fallen tree. As he maneuvered around it, he heard heavy footsteps approaching from behind. In the heart of Northern California's Emerald Triangle, a region encompassing Mendocino, Humboldt, and Trinity counties, lies a dense expanse of towering redwoods and rugged terrain. Known for its prolific cannabis cultivation, this area has long been shrouded in mystery, attracting both those seeking fortune and those hiding from the law. The labyrinthine forests have given rise to numerous legends, the most enigmatic being that of Bigfoot, the elusive creature said to roam these woods. In the fall of 1993, investigative journalist David Holthouse found himself on a cannabis farm deep within the Emerald Triangle. One night, as a heavy fog enveloped the forest, he overheard a chilling conversation among the farm's workers. They spoke in hushed tones about a gruesome event. 3 men had been found brutally murdered on a nearby farm, their bodies reportedly torn apart. The perpetrators? According to the whispers, it was none other than Bigfoot. Haunted by what he'd heard, Holthouse embarked on a quest to uncover the truth behind these claims. He delved into the shadowy underbelly of the region's cannabis industry, where lawlessness often reigned, and distrust of outsiders was palpable. Through interviews with local growers, law enforcement, and residents, a complex web of stories emerged. Some dismissed the Bigfoot narrative as a cover-up for more human evils, while others insisted on the creature's involvement. Several theories surfaced during Holthouse's investigation. Some believed the murders were the result of a territorial clash between rival cannabis growers, with the Bigfoot story fabricated to divert attention from the true culprits. Others posited that the killings were linked to the dangerous drug trade prevalent in the area, where disputes were often settled with brutal violence. A faction of locals maintained that Bigfoot, disturbed by the encroachment of humans into its habitat, had lashed out violently, leading to the deaths. The legend of Bigfoot has been deeply ingrained in the folklore of the Pacific Northwest for generations. Described as a large, bipedal, ape-like creature, sightings have been reported since the 19th century. In the Emerald Triangle, where the dense forests provide ample cover, tales of Bigfoot encounters are commonplace. For some, these stories serve as a means to explain the unexplainable. For others, they are cautionary tales about the dangers lurking in the wilderness. Despite Holthouse's thorough investigation, the truth behind the 1993 murders remains elusive. The case was never officially solved, and the legend of Bigfoot's involvement persists in local lore. Whether the creature was a convenient scapegoat or an actual participant in the events of that fateful night is a question that continues to haunt the region. The story of the Midnight Murders serves as a chilling reminder of the interplay between myth and reality. In the depths of the Emerald Triangle, where the line between the known and the unknown blurs, tales of Bigfoot provide both an explanation and a mystery. As long as the forests stand, the question will remain: was Bigfoot a witness to the crime, or was it the perpetrator?